Hi everyone, Sam from the Danger Planet here. Today we're going to be continuing our Malifaux-Model-Mayhem series with our second entry. So come with me and we're going to look at the mechanical marvel of the Iron Matron. So this is the second episode of our Malifaux-Model-Mayhem series, and just to remind everyone, this is the series where we talk about a single Malifaux model that's really key and central to how its crew functions. We go over what that model does, what its role in the crew is, um, why people will be hiring it, and how maybe to fight against it a little bit. And today we're going to be talking about the Iron Matron of the Bygone keyword. So just to give a little background, the Iron Matron is Tiri's mother, actually. Possibly her grandmother, I don't recall exactly. She's the previous leader of this band of AUA refugees, and unfortunately, due to Cherup's curse and her great age, she was on the verge of death, and they basically transferred her spirit into this construct body, the Iron Matron, where she can watch over the AUA. And she does that with the help of her giant frickin' sword. So the Iron Matron is one of the premier beatsticks in Explorer Society. Definitely one of the premier beatsticks in Bygone. She's very pricey at 10 stones. And just I'll preface this by saying she has been nerfed once already. Before the nerf, I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's not super relevant anymore, but she was basically broken, like really, really out of control broken. You'd hire her 100% of the time. I had a game in which I, on turn one, on corner deployment, killed my opponent's Fuhatsu in his own deployment zone before he had activated with the Iron Matron. She was just way, way too killy, and they've toned her down significantly. She's, at this point, very pricey for what she does, and I think she's maybe not someone you hire 100% of the time, but she's still a strong hire and can do a lot for the crew. So we'll go over basically her role. Now, the number one thing that the Iron Matron does is she has a great sword. It's the same weapon Lady Justice has, and a few others. It's a 2-inch range, 3, 4, 5, that if you haven't charged, has a built-in positive twist on the damage flip. And that's really strong. This is a, 3, 4, 5 is pretty, nasty damage track, and that built-in positive means you don't need to focus to get to a straight flip on damage, and if you did focus, you can even get to a straight flip on damage if your opponent is hard to wound or is spending a soul stone. So she's really, really good at punching through damage. The downside to that is that she doesn't have any triggers that increase her damage. She has one pass through, which can push her up to 5 inches in any direction, ignoring enemy models, and deal 1 damage to every enemy model she moves through. So it's sort of a damage increase, but there's a lot of restrictions on the trigger. It's once per activation only, and it also requires you to be in tradition mode, because the Bygone crew switches between tradition and technology modes. So it's not really a reliable way to get a bunch of extra damage, and that does limit her quite a bit, especially if the opponent has armor. She does not crack through armor, so you really are going to want to get her into a target that's a little bit softer, and she'll just carve it to pieces. Now her other rules are mostly focused around that specific thing she's trying to do. She has armor and hard to wound, which is a really solid combo, and especially along with soul stones makes her pretty durable. And she has the bonus action shield generator to stack some shielded on herself. And it's also very easy for this crew to hand out shielded, so it's very rare that the matron won't be shielded. So she's pretty durable. She also has guiding presence, which is kind of a cute little aura you shouldn't forget. It's when a model with an aura 4, a friendly model with an aura 4 would gain slow or distracted, she can discard a card to not gain that condition. Now, obviously that's, pretty expensive. It's a card, but this is a crew with a lot of card draw, and those are both pretty crippling conditions, so it's just nice to be able to no-sell them, and especially into like December or Performer or Infamous if it's title zip. These are just conditions they really want to put on you to make their crew do their thing, and being able to just no-sell them is very strong. And then finally, she's unimpeded. Just, nothing can hide from her. So the core problem with the Iron Matron, of course, is how do you get into combat without charging? She used to be able to target herself with the last matriarch action, which we're going to talk about more a little bit. She can't do that anymore. So with Iron Matron, the real key to using her effectively is A, figuring out how to get her into combat without charging, or B, figuring out when it's okay to charge and give up that positive twist for damage. Now, you'll see I have the Matron laid out here with a few other models, and all three of these models are key to how the Matron functions. And we'll start with Tiri herself, because Tiri is really key to using the Matron effectively. A typical turn with Tiri will involve targeting the Iron Matron with Tiri's Impassioned Defense ability, which will give the Matron shielded, and with a built-in Tome trigger will also draw you a card. You will also, or not, it will draw you a card, sorry, and it will also give her focused. That's the most important part. 2 shielded, 1 focused, and Tiri draws a card from her own aura. Then you will target the Iron Matron with Off the Path, and you will either cheat or Soulstone for a Crow. What that does is it inflicts the Burnout trigger, which will deal 2 damage to the Matron, which is of course reduced to 1 by armor and 0 by shielded, and then give the Matron fast. And it will also push the Matron up between 4 and 8 inches, depending on the value of the cards you discard. And typically you'll be discarding weak cards, because you get to discard cards and then draw new ones, so you're cycling 2 weeks out of your hand, and that'll be a 4-inch push on the Matron. But sometimes, if you really need to, you can get rid of a moderate or even a severe to go further. So that's one way of putting the Matron up into the enemy's face. The other way to do it is with the Ancient Construct here. The Ancient Constructs have Toss, and they can toss the Matron 10 inches. So, we'll dial her back a bit. Say we have the Matron here. We're just going to carefully line this up so we're not clipping the house, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now here she is engaging both the Ronin and the Victoria and ready to do a ton of damage with her 3 attacks because she is fast. Finally, Parson is very, very important here because Parson can give her the ability Superheated. It's a trigger on his bonus action. Now, he needs to be very close to her to use this bonus action. It's range 2 inches. But what the bonus action does is it ends any number of conditions on her, which incidentally will get rid of any kind of nasty, debilitating condition that your opponent, put on you that you couldn't or remove with her aura or block. Like maybe your opponent's given her burning, maybe he's given her stunned. Just get rid of those conditions and you heal her for each condition removed, which is very important because, as we've said, she's pretty durable, which means she's likely to survive to benefit from that healing. But the important thing is the Superheated trigger gives her a positive twist on all of her damage flips. Now, what that means, basically, is that especially if you can trigger the Greatsword, you have a double positive to all of your damage flips, all of your attacks. That is totally insane. That means that you are going to be, even if you didn't focus, it doesn't matter if your opponent is using Soul Stones or is hard to wound, you're at a straight flip. And if you did use focus, then it doesn't matter if your opponent uses Soul Stones and is hard to wound. Nothing can avoid getting to a straight flip. And Tiri draws so many cards between her aura and between the cycling of Off the Path that you are often going to have a bunch of severes. So you can just look at your hand and say, I'm going to hit you a bunch of times. It doesn't even matter if you're defense 6, because even if I'm matching your defense, I'm at double positive to damage. So that's a straight flip all by itself. And, if I focused, then it's a straight flip that gets through Soulstone use or hard to wound. I can just force through these hits, and then I can force through these big, chunky 5 damage attacks. So the Iron Matron is very, very good at deleting things, although she is a real resource sink. So the other thing that you really need to pay attention to with the Iron Matron is what mode you're in for Bygone. Now, Bygone players know switching between tradition and technology is difficult. It's something that you need to really figure out with the timing on. And it's important because you can only change during Tiri's activation. So if you have a certain mode you need to be in and you're not currently in that mode, you need to activate Tiri in between now and when the model you want to activate is activating. And the key here is that Iron Matron, as we've said, has 1 damage adding trigger. It's a technology, or it's a tradition trigger, sorry, so she needs to be in tradition mode. Parson's Superheated trigger to give her the extra damage flips is a technology mode trigger. So if you want the Matron to have her pass-through trigger live when she goes in, you need to go Parson, then Tiri, Parson here, then Tiri, then the Matron. Now, we talked about the Ancient Constructs with Toss. The Constructs also have a very useful trigger, in As the Smoke Clears, which says that when they toss a friendly Bygone model, and they get that trigger, all enemy attacks are at a negative flip to hit them until that model activates. And that's a really huge deal because, as we've said, the matron is, hard to wound. She has armor. She has shielded. There's various ways in the crew to heal her. So she is tough. And when you're making people be at a negative flip to hit her, that's just brutal. Now, I mean, obviously people can just focus, but especially if you have concealment and Tiri can generate concealment, you can basically get that double negative to hit against guns. And if your opponent doesn't have a built-in positive twist or ignore concealment, they can't really do much. They could focus, but they'll still be at a negative flip to hit you. So you have a lot of really good defensive tech, but like I said, that's a tradition trigger. So when you're playing this crew, what you really need to do is, if you want to go in with the matron in tradition mode, you need to activate Parson, then activate Tiri, then activate the construct, then activate the matron. One thing that also you should bear in mind is, because you're going to be targeting the matron with off the path during Tiri's activation, you don't necessarily need to have the matron way up early in the turn. You can have her hanging back here with Parson, so Parson's very safe, and he gives her the positive to damage flips. Then Tiri can sort of nudge the Iron Matron up with an off the path. Then the Ancient Construct can activate and walk, and they can walk 4, so not very far, but they only need to end within 1 inch of the Matron, and then toss the Matron and go to town. So we're going to talk a little bit about attacking. I don't think I need to say too much about this because it's pretty straightforward. Just remember, you're a 3-4-5. You are very frequently going to be at a straight flip. However, you don't ignore armor, and you don't have a severe 6. So you are going to be taking, you're going to be doing ideally 5 damage a swing, but usually if you're attacking a valuable target, less. Maybe 4 damage if they're armored, or if they're a soulstone user, between 2 and 4 damage because they'll be soulstone preventing, and then they're shielded. There's a lot to think about, and with 3 attacks, that's a lot, but against a master that is maybe armored or shielded and that is preventing damage, you are going to have a hard time one-rounding them now. It was a little easier before when she could make 4 attacks, but with 3, a lot more things can survive one round of the Iron Matron beating on them. However, the nature of her attacks is very interesting because the way that pass through works, it's not like critical strike. It's an extra point of damage. So this Ronin, for example. Ronin have hard to kill. You can toss the Iron Matron up, attack the Ronin, pretty easily get to a straight flip, cheat a severe, deal 5 damage to knock the Ronin to hard to kill, and then do pass through, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now the Ronin takes another point of damage and dies. And now I'm still engaging Victoria, and I did a point of damage to her, and I can also start swinging on her. The Vics are actually one of the masters you can pretty reliably kill because their health is so low. I think with the change to the Iron Matron, she really doesn't want to be just alpha striking super hard into the middle of the enemy crew and hitting their toughest henchmen. I think that's possible, but especially turn 1, they're going to have soulstones left, they're going to have their crews all bubbled up, and the Matron has lost Cruel Disappointment, so she is more, it's more possible to actually kill her. So I think you want to do things like pick off Ronin, pick off Enforcers. Enforcers are great prey for her because they can't soulstone to prevent. It's much better with the Iron Matron to kill a valuable model every turn for the first 3 turns of the game than it is to bash her head first into a really valuable model, not quite kill it, and then spend turn 2 killing it and then also dying on the backswing. The Matron gives you a lot of value over the course of the game, and you want to be able to benefit from that value. You also really want her to survive because, like I've said, once you get her into combat, if she's alive, you have a lot of ways to heal her. Parson's heal, very short range, it's only 2 inches. But Tiri has that trigger on her Earthquake where when she blasts onto a friendly, she heals them. And the First Light has a trigger on her Shockwave where when she drops it near a friendly, she heals them. So you have a lot of these little heals, these little ping heals here and there that can really help keep this model alive. And of course, if you're going out of keyword and you're hiring a machinist, that's even better. You can just charge them the Matron healer for 4. So I think the machinist is worth a look as an out of keyword hire. For that respect. Now, the Matron, people are so used to bulleting her into the enemy force. I think that people kind of sleep on the other things she can do. Now, this is it's a gaining grounds that requires you to be, quick in positioning, quick, clever, position well. But one of the things that this gaining grounds really rewards is being able to take interact actions outside of your activation. And the matron can do that. So this is where we're going to talk about her bonus action. It's pretty strong. It used to be a lot stronger, but Last Matriarch is another friendly Bygone within 6 inches. It only takes a 3. Um, you move the target up to 3 inches, which is great. You can pull someone out of combat, or in if you want. But it has 2 useful triggers. When you're in technology mode, it lets the target make an attack action. And there are some other powerful attackers, especially Parson is a really, really strong attacker. He's got a relic hammer, and I will say with Parson, you really want when he's attacking to be in tradition mode because then your opponent can't cheat against him. In technology mode, when you can make him attack, they can cheat. But if you're doing this late in the turn, where you have cards left because you've been drawing so many cards and your opponent doesn't, you can sneak in a sneaky 3-4-5 relic hammer hit with Parson. You can also just whack someone with an ancient construct. Ancient constructs. Technology mode is where they want to be if they're fighting because it gives them the mechanical muscle trigger that turns them into a 3-4-6. Now, you obviously can't declare that trigger on an attack generated by a trigger like Last Matriarch, but basically, if you want to get a construct into combat, you really want to already be in technology mode, so you can have the matron send the construct in, make it swing, then the construct activates and swings 2 more times, for example. The other thing, of course, in tradition mode is that the target gets to take the interact action, and that's really cool. You can do things like have somebody vote. If your opponent has, walked up to engage you, so you can't vote, you get the 3-inch move. You just move right out of their engagement. Boop. Let's say, Victoria's a 2, so say the Ronin's our ballot marker there. You just shuffle him over there within 1 inch of the ballot, not within 2 inches of Victoria. Get your free interact, get your vote on. This playstyle of the matron kind of requires her to sit more in your crew. She's benefiting people from her aura. She's benefiting with Last Matriarch. And once battle is joined and your opponent has kind of moved up, it's maybe turn 2, you don't need to bullet her out. You can just have her, get pushed into combat with off the path and then start swinging. So I think that you should consider doing that a fair bit with the Iron Matron now. Especially if you are going to be getting value otherwise from her aura, or especially if your opponent doesn't really have the kind of enforcers that you really just want to swoop up and kill turn 1. Like they're not running a Bow Fishbacher, they're not running someone like a 33. The matron is reasonably good at killing 33. It's a little frustrating that you can't get the extra damage from pass through, but just basically models like that. So the Iron Matron, like I said, she has been nerfed. You have other options in a Tiri crew or outside. In a Tiri crew, I think she gains a lot because the ability to just give her fast, focused, shielded to build in her triggers, and get to draw a card from her declaring one of her triggers. As long as she's close enough to Tiri, she really does gain a lot. But you can consider hiring the Hand of Janus instead. It's a little bit of a different model. It's a lot more vulnerable than the Iron Matron because it's relying so heavily on its armor to stay alive, and it's got terrible defensive stats. And if your opponent's ignoring armor, you're just gonna lose the hand. But it does have a pretty good gun. You can make it fast. You can make it focused. You can do all that stuff to it. So that's something to consider maybe. The flip side of this is hiring out of keyword. You used to see the Iron Matron out of keyword because she was just such a beat stick. I would say if you're not running Tiri, you probably don't want to hire the matron anymore. She doesn't really offer a lot to a crew that's not Bygone. She does have guiding presence, so if you're really sure that your opponent's going to be trying to hand out slow, and you need to just make sure that doesn't happen at all costs, you can take the Iron Matron for that. I don't know that I necessarily think that's worth 11 stones as an out of keyword hire. She's very, very pricey. But you have that option. But I do think in Bygone, she's great. She's a small base, an unimpeded small base, which really helps. She can get where she needs to go. And she is pretty durable, like I said. She does also, I haven't mentioned it yet, she has an action called Grave's Edge. It is one of those, sets out a pulse, so your opponent has to take TN simple duels, or in this case, take damage and push towards herself. I get why they're doing that. It's like push in, pull targets in so she doesn't have to walk to get to them. But it's just, not a super high TN duel. It's not something I want to spend an AP doing. I'd rather just walk because if I'm spending an AP anyway to get the opponent into beating range, I'd rather just walk up to them and swing them, because this way, if you walk, they can't just pass the movement duel and have your attack do literally nothing. So Grave's Edge is an interesting idea. I'm glad they create unique actions like that. It is not something I ever see myself doing. I will say gets a little value because Tiri can stagger with her ranged attack, but even so, just don't do it. Just walk up and hit somebody. So the Iron Matron's role is she's a melee threat, and she's a bit of a versatile melee threat because you have that ability to hang her back, to direct other models to interact and to take swings, and then when the time comes to send her in. If your opponent is not hard to wound and does not have a lot of armor, I think you really don't need to worry so much about squeezing every last drop of value out of her. For example, if you've already got this, if your opponent isn't hard to wound and doesn't have armor, and you've already got superheated on her from Parson, and maybe you've got some focus, you don't really need that extra damage flip from the Greatsword. You'd rather just charge in so you get to make 3 attacks instead of 2. If your opponent is heavily armored, you need to hit those severes because weak 1 is no good. Then you maybe will consider taking the walk and trying to hit him twice for severe damage. I mean, an armored target that's even armor 2, as long as it doesn't have shielded and you get to hit pass through, you can go severe pass through and deal 7 damage to it, which is, armor 2 models tend to not have very much health, so that's a lot of damage. But ultimately with the Matron, the real key to using her effectively is effective target selection, and once you've selected a target, delivering precisely the amount of force that's necessary. For example, if you're gonna get 3 attacks with the Matron, and there's only 1 model around, so you're not going to be able to spill attacks onto another target if you kill the first one, maybe you don't need to cheat all those damage flips. You can hit him for week 3 times. It's 9 damage, is a lot, plus the 1 from the pass through. If you're targeting something with hard to kill, pretty elementary. Save the pass through for the last swing, so you kill him on the hard to kill. Just things like that. You want to keep in mind that this is a precision instrument, and you have a lot of different levers to pull to change your damage output on the Matron, and you want to make sure that the damage output that you're getting is exactly matched to the target you want. So I really like the Iron Matron. I think it's a lot of fun, and just because I like doing this kind of thing, just to give you a sense of just how far she can go, say we're starting off with the Matron, with the Construct, and with Tiri in this little bubble here, and Parson's here. Parson goes, "Oh, Matron, why don't you become superheated?" Tiri says, "Okay, Matron, here, now you're fast, or now you're focused, now you're shielded, now you're fast, and I'm going to move you 1, 2, 3, 4 inches because I discarded, 2 weeks." And then the Construct says, 1, 2, 3, 4, I am now going to toss you, and you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll just move a little. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and there I am. I'm going to attack Victoria. I'm going to attack the Ronin. I'm just going to make a huge mess of things. And I think there's a lot of good play left in the Iron Matron. And I think some people wrote her off after her nerf. She's definitely not where she was, but where she was a pretty unhealthy place for the game. And where she is now is nice. It's solid. I think I would like to see her getting a couple more interesting triggers on her melee attack, because right now it just feels a little mopey at 10 stones. But beyond that, I think that, you wouldn't be ashamed to hire her, and you really are going to catch opponents off guard if they're not used to just how much mobility she has and how much damage she can do when she gets there. And if you're playing against the Iron Matron, flip side is you just need to be aware of that. You need to be aware of how far she can go. She can reach out and touch you. The targets you present to her, you really want to be less exciting targets. You want things with armor, you want things with hard to wound, you want things with shielded, incorporeal, so that they don't take the damage from pass through. You want targets that can spend soul stones. You want to make the Matron get locked down. She really doesn't want to be locked down, especially if she had to charge herself in, because look at how far behind she's left her support staff. Now she's also vulnerable to being stunned. Stunning is a big deal against her. And she's only got 9 health. I mean, it's not nothing, but even with armor and shielded, that health will chip away pretty quickly if you keep hitting her. And she is only defense 5. So if you're attacking with a stat 6, You can force through these hits, and if you force through enough hits, even an armored, shielded, soulstone using models will fall over. So she's also very, very expensive. So if you can just tie her up and feed her crappy targets, and that's a win for you, because that's a lot of your opponent's crew that's not doing anything else. That's the Iron Matron. I think she's a cool model. She's a really cool concept for a model. The model itself is obviously really gorgeous. It's got that huge sword. She's got 4 arms. She's robot grandma. She's great. So just, I really think you should try her out if you haven't yet with Bygone. She's a great model. She comes in the box with Parson, and you're going to be using Parson all the time. So you might as well. And that's our Malifaux-Model-Mayhem for this week. So we have a lot of models left to do. Obviously, there are more than 700 Malifaux models. We've only covered at the time of recording this, 2. We're really trying to focus on models that are iconic for their keyword, core, central, important to what their keyword is trying to do. So if you have suggestions for what you'd like to see, let us know in the Discord. You could join our Patreon. The link is in the description. We have a lot of great content. Patrons get to vote on upcoming episodes, things like what model we're going to pick for Malifaux-Model-Mayhem. We have, like I said, Discord, links in the description. Please like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment to just let us know, maybe an experience you had with the Matron, pre-nerf, post-nerf. Are you happy she got nerfed? I'm sure a lot of you are. And just let us know how you think we're doing. Until next time, thanks for stopping by the Danger Planet.